Okay, hello. My name is Julie Small. I am here to report on my Applied Practice Experience, or APE, as a requirement to earn a Master of Public Health from Eastern Washington University. For the last couple of years, I have volunteered as a crime victim advocate with Lutheran Community Services in Spokane. LCS is a nonprofit organization that supports people who have experienced various traumas, and with offices in 3 states, each location focuses on something different. The Spokane office, among other things, has a robust advocacy unit to help crime victims. I approached the volunteer and intern coordinator at LCS, Abigail Doherty, to see if I could do an internship with them, and it was approved. The whole advocacy team welcomed me warmly. I had the opportunity to work on multiple projects, gaining valuable experience above and beyond the requirements of the APE. And my mentor appreciated my contributions. I learned many important things that will help me in my public health career. I completed 3 projects and answered the 24-hour crisis line, met survivors of sexual assault at the emergency department, and analyzed public health policies. All in, I spent 114 and 3/4 hours completing my APE. So as I said, I completed 3 projects. First one is a directory of local, state, and national resources that might be useful to victims of crime or their advocates. So crisis response advocates must know what resources are available to help the people they're working with. I used their old directory, LCS's old directory, as my foundation and updated it by verifying all contact information and filling in the gaps. I think I ended up adding in nearly 100 new references. I also reformatted it to make it more user-friendly. Let me show you that here. Where is it? Here we go. So starts with a table of contents, and it's 20 something pages long, so I won't go through the whole thing, but there's lots of great resources there. It took me 50 hours to complete that, and that satisfies the Council on Education for Public Health's competency numbers 12, 18, and 19. Second, I made a 1-page guide for survivors of sexual assault who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, or IDD. Individuals with IDD often need to communicate in plain language and with pictures. These survivors need to know that what comes next, they need to know what comes next in a way that makes sense to them. So this step-by-step guide, I'll show it to you here. Oh, there we go. How about if we get it bigger? Ah, too big. So this, I did lots of research on words to use and words not to use, pictures to use, and what colors to use, all of that. I downloaded the visuals from digital.gov, the Noun Project, and I used the Hemingway editor to check if the writing was at a first grade level. My supervisor enrolled me in a training course that was just for designing materials for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities using plain language, exactly what this is. So I learned a lot doing that one for sure. And that took me about 5.5 hours. Satisfies CEIFs 6, 18, and 19. The third project I worked on Well, so my supervisor first tasked me with creating a document for new hires that describes what a community sexual assault program, or CSAP, is and what LCS does in our community. Then, as the project progressed, the program director asked me, so not my supervisor, but her boss, asked me to expand it, that they wanted to use it for multiple purposes, not just maybe internally. And she wanted me to include links to news articles and a brief history of women's rights. So I created that document in a 1 page, a 2 page, and a 4 page format. So that's this here. How about if we get it? Here we go. So all of these link to news articles or maybe Facebook posts on things that Lutheran Community Services has done. And all the pictures, I think, are from their website or Facebook. So that took me 13 hours researching information on history.gov, newspaper archives, Facebook, etc. I reviewed and summarized key components of a CSAP. I compiled and wrote that brief history on women's rights relevant to violence prevention and survivor support, and drafted a clear introduction to LCS. The other activities that I completed were shadowing staff advocates at Superior Court and District Court to provide legal advocacy and help people fill out their requests for protection orders. I also shadowed staff advocates doing outreach at Whitworth University, teaching athletes about healthy relationships. I got to do some policy analysis and updated an Excel spreadsheet with state legislation that applies to crime victims. The Excel sheet is very large and links to all of the legislation, all the bills, right? And a good deal of time was spent answering the crisis hotline and meeting sexual assault survivors at the emergency department. I provided support and information. I listened, showed empathy, and informed them of local resources available, which I was very acquainted with, having updated that directory. I advocated for their needs in medical settings and, high stress situations. Here are those SEAF competencies that I referenced before. I satisfied all the requirements for each of these. My applied practice experience was very rewarding. I got to contribute to a meaningful cause. Hearing people's stories of suffering at the emergency department, the courthouse, on the crisis hotline has really opened my eyes to the pain in my community. The more I hear, the more respect I have for survivors of sexual assault and other crimes. And the more grateful I am that organizations like LCS exist. Victim advocacy is vital, and I am humbled to be involved.